seats between you. Chris Potter's Celebration of Life, and this last week or so, I've really, by the way, my name's Chris Jones. And if you call me Chris, I'm not going to know who you're talking to, so you got to call me Jones. Potter was Potter. We had a funny moment in college. There were 6 of us sitting in a dorm room, and we all realized that we were all going by our last names because we were all Chris. So I just wanted to open with kind of a brief story about how Chris and I really cemented our relationship. We've known each other basically as long as any brother would. We grew up just a block away from each other. With Damien and Brandon, we basically just hung out all the time and walked to the beach and loved life. So I wanted to share with you this painting that Chris did. And this was really the moment that we became as close could be. We were always fairly close, and throughout college he had his group, and we're going to have some of those individuals come up and talk today. But after college, he was kind of moving around a little bit, San Diego, and we were still very close. But then one day he found out that I liked the backpack. He's like, let's go backpacking. I was like, okay, cool. So off we go into the backcountry and to a really special place called Horseshoe Bend. Clap if you know where Horseshoe Bend is. And so this is a painting. We woke up in the morning. Chris started painting, looking up the creek, and I sat down and I was reading. And any of you that have been backpacking with us know we were just kind of sitting there for a little too long, and it was time to get up and start walking. So he quit painting. This is an unfinished painting. The upper right corner, that's not a cloud. That is literally the last bit, but he just put it down and we went walking up the creek. We had the most amazing day. We came back, we sat down underneath, there's a little tiny sycamore that sticks out of the rock, and we were sitting right there kind of in the shade of the rock, our feet being nibbled on by little trout, and it dawned on me that he was a better friend to me than I was to him. He reached out constantly to say hello and to check in with me, and that was the moment where I swore that it was going to be totally reciprocal. And from that point on, our friendship was just as tight as could be. So this painting disappeared for years, and then it was a New Year's Eve party, and I mean a lot of the people were there, and he was giving away paintings because his stock was too full, and he had a bunch of paintings that he wasn't going to sell. And this is one of the ones he gave away, and I don't remember how we got it. I think maybe Chloe, my daughter, got it, or something like that. And I looked at it, I was like, no way, that's the painting from the day. So magically, this painting made it back to me. And so this sits in my bedroom. It's kind of a special thing that I like to look at and remember. So anyway, let's really try today to make this a huge celebration. Chris would have loved to have just a massive party, which is what we're going to do. So I want to get some of the administrative stuff out of the way, and then we can just enjoy today. Afterwards, when we go to Timbers for the after celebration, there's not a ton of parking. So if you can, let's try to carpool. We can leave cars here, that's fine. Try to have at least maybe 4 people in your car. And then that should leave enough parking for everybody. We do have some people kind of starting to still come in, so if there's space between you and somebody else, can we just push in so we make sure we have room for everybody? And then also, if you're able-bodied, you're able to walk. As you head along Cathedral Oaks to get to Timbers, you turn left to go to Timbers. To the right is there's a always empty street. You can park there and walk. So if you're able-bodied, that would help people out. And then thinking about maybe doing a little walk up to the bluff, just overlooking the Bragg Farm for sunset tonight around 5:50 or so. So yeah, I think that's about it. Let's go ahead and get into our presentation. So we're going to go ahead and start with Xenia.
to talk for me, but he said that I should come up and talk, so hopefully I'll keep it together. I wanted to welcome everyone for showing up for my amazing husband. When a loved one departs unexpectedly, it sure leaves a big hole. It's obvious how much he was loved, because look at all of you guys. In that spirit, I would like to invite people that felt that Chris was their best friend to stand up. The impact that he had, it wasn't just his art, it was him. So thank you. I want to say also that he loved you back. He never talked shit about anyone. It's really true, except when someone wouldn't follow the ethics in golf, then I would definitely hear about it. He was my everything. And now he lives through his art, and my daughter, Senya, and my son, Malachi. So thank you for all here. Your support, love, your art appreciation, companionship was everything to him. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Okay. Very good. Okay, I have a speech I wrote. Hi everyone, thank you all for coming. Okay. Okay. So, beginning this speech, I feel as though there was only one truly correct thing to say. My dad was a fucking legend. Everyone around him saw it. His life was filled with love and joy and curiosity. He relished it, bathed in the simple, pure things of life. As he analyzed and painted the sights he loved, he sparked happiness in the people around him. It was truly magical seeing him befriend every single person he was surrounded by. If we were in a line for a roller coaster for hours, he still wanted to crack a joke to the random grumpy old guy that was standing next to him. That ability is incredible to me. No social anxiety, no worries, he could just do it. That's who Chris Potter was. And I loved him so much, only the way a daughter could love her dad, innocent and purely. We had the most special father-daughter bond together. Everyone could see it too. We laughed so much with each other, there was never a dull moment with him. There never could be. That's just who he was, full of life. But it's hard, losing the person you've been closest to your whole life. Losing your role model, losing your rock. Even with that, I am so eternally grateful for everything he has done for me. For my family, and for all of our friends. He gave his life to us. He was such a giver. He spoiled me rotten too. We all know I'm not exaggerating when I say he knew everyone. We could go anywhere in Santa Barbara, and at least 3 times or more, someone would walk by him. Chris Potter! And they talk for 5 minutes, and then we'd walk on. I think everyone could see how kind of a soul he had. He was so incredibly pure. My handwriting's kind of bad. At any chance he got, he donated to anywhere and everywhere that needed it. My dad was truly a selfless man. His soul had brought so much life into so many people's lives. If there was a perfect person, I'd say he's the closest one to it. He told me stories of his time with his father. They were traveling around Europe together when he was a teenager. He said it inspired him, and he saw the food that he ate, the people there. I was envious of that time he was able to take with his father. I started brainstorming with him when me and him would be able to take that trip. We agreed that maybe in a couple years. I've looked back on our time together these past couple weeks, and I have to say, he made my life the best it could be with what he had. We traveled around the world together. Italy, France, Hawaii. He wanted to take a trip to Japan with us this summer. He taught me so much, lessons of art, psychology of people, how to be happy, and to make sure that when I'm older, I do what I love. None of us got a goodbye. He was taken from us abruptly. And I know I can't find it, but it was also so unfair. Words can't describe how much I'll miss him, but I know that he's always here for me, here for all of us. He'll always be in the sunsets we see, in the stars we look up at, everything around us. I see him in my older brother, and sometimes I can see a part of him with myself. I hope that one day I can amount to the genuine and amazing human he was.
so next up, our next presenter could not be here in person, so he recorded what he wanted to present. We are live streaming and they are watching, so if you turn back to the camera, everybody, say hi to Jack and Kim. And Jack Johnson.
It's a great group of people, as Potter had so many great friends, and I'm sorry I couldn't make it. I was sitting around thinking about memories of Potter and some stories I wanted to share, and most of them were kind of just dumb, just memories of being together as we shared a room for 2 years. Chris and I met first week of school, freshman year in the hallway in the dorms. I can remember the first time I ran into him and just liking him right off the bat. We became friends right away. We were hanging together all the time. Decided to move in next year and share a room, so Chris and I shared a room for 2 years. And one thought that just always comes up and makes me laugh throughout the years, and Chris and I actually were cracking up talking about this last year, is that when we were first moving in, we went out to Goodwill and we bought this clock. It looked really cool. This is back before cell phones for all the kids that are there. So we got an alarm clock, and it was like this bright red clock, as I remember. It had 2 bells on it and a little hammer that would go back and forth. Looked really cool. I don't think we tested it out. We got back and we tried it, and it was so loud and it sounded like a fire alarm. The first morning it went off, we just were like, what in the hell? What are we doing? We gotta go get a new clock. And then sure enough, next day the thing goes off again. We gotta get a new clock. We had that thing for a whole year, and every morning we wake up, and Chris would say, we gotta get a new clock. Neither of us, both of us were too lazy to ever get a new one. So anyways, that's just a memory I always laugh about. We never changed the clock. A more profound memory is that I can remember, I don't know if it was the first painting that Chris ever did, but it was definitely one of his first. Because I remember he didn't paint for a while. He used to do all kinds of other stuff, and he loved music. He always loved music. And I remember this one time I came into our room and he had this canvas and he had a painting going, and he was like, hey, check this out. And I came over, I looked at it, and it was very psychedelic. It was very colorful and vivid and psychedelic. And I remember asking, what is it? Is it a alien or something? And he said, no, it's music. And he had headphones on, and he had just been painting whatever the music made him feel. And so his first paintings, and maybe a lot of you in the room got to see those, they were very psychedelic. He matured into doing landscapes, but he kept those vivid colors. I remember thinking when I started seeing his paintings as he developed, that he held on to the early colors that he loved to use. So anyways, I felt really lucky to be there to watch that spark as he became an artist. I got to see the very first one. And as a friend, he was always so supportive of all of his friends. Anybody who was trying to do something creative, he was the type of friend that made you feel so good about what you were doing and encouraged you to keep doing it. And I really appreciate Chris was in my life to help encourage me. And so I just want to send all my love and my family's love to your friends and family that are all there together. We love you, Chris, and hope to see you all soon. Aloha.
So our next presenter, those of us in the neighborhood didn't really get to meet because he'd already kind of left the house by the time we were friends with Chris. And as I was sitting down and trying to figure out with the group, like, where are we going to hold this thing? There's going to be so many people. I knew we would need a place with a ramp instead of stairs because he's so much older than us. So Jay Potter Jr.
Wow, this sucks. I'll do my best to hold my shit together, but it's gonna be tough. And yes, I am old. If you had told me that there was a party in Santa Barbara where a few hundred people wanted to get together and celebrate the life of my brother, I wouldn't have been surprised. The fact that we're doing it with him, without him, is unbearable. I know it's selfish, But it's unjust to think that my beautiful brother is dead when there are so many absolute human turds out there running around. Sadly, this is my third time I've had the honor to make a fool of myself in front of loved ones. Worse yet, the second time in too few months with the loss of our father. This hurts. Again, the mere idea that I won't get to spend time with him, laugh with him, golf with him, grow old with him, kind of bites. Chris was 11 years my junior. He was the baby. He was almost as much of a celebrity fucking then as he is now. And it's, he was a giver, a charmer, and an instant friend to anyone and everyone he met. My mother would introduce Chris to people as the Christ child. The crazy thing is, I think he almost lived up to it. Unlike me, and perhaps many of you, I was always in trouble for doing something, you know, growing weed or stealing shit, you know, it was always something. But I mean, that guy could get away with anything, right? Anything. I think the thing I thought he definitely was going to get in trouble for is he stole one of my dad's bottles of shitty gin, and somehow that the parental units thought that was cute. Like his namesake, Christopher was a giver. He gave with his art, he gave with his smile, he enjoyed making others smile and laugh. I mean, I swear, there were no strangers with Chris, just future friends. It's always something to work for. He did all that giving, and in the end, we're left with the loss, which I find kind of ironic. I mean, with all that we got from him, that we're all sad for wanting more. You really couldn't spend too much time with him. I know I did. With the recent death of my father and now my brother, I've had a lot of time to think about death and all the selfish thoughts that go with it. You know, how much I'm going to miss him, the trips we were going to take, the golf we were going to play. I can't help but I feel like I'm due a return for this loss. You know, with all that's been taken away, but I can't figure out how to spin a brick. How do I turn this giant rotten lemon into lemonade? When my grandfather was close to his death, I was able to see him at the end, and he told me that the secret to life was the one who dies with the smallest brag of regret. That always meant something to me. I shared it with Chris, and it meant something to him. I think the statement advice has played well in his life. When my wife's mother was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, I bore witness to a level of courage and pride I could hardly explain. When she was given the diagnosis of 6 months, she lived with a laugh. And she said, from when? Next June? Amazing. When my father was in the hospital a few months ago, Christopher and I got to hang out a lot, which was just awesome. And at his bedside, you know, and doing what we could to ease his suffering as he'd come in and out of low blood pressure delirium. We, of course, spent time talking about our father's nearing death, what we'd have to take care of, what we'd have to do. It started serious, but as it does in our family, it quickly turned dark, morbid, and cynical. In the time sharing with him, our father, and one of the more lucid moments of my dad that's worth sharing was we were sitting there, and I mean, this hot Polish nurse comes in to give my dad a treatment for his dry skin. We asked if we should leave. She says, not if you want to watch. He and I sat there frozen. As she says, oh, you look like a bad boy. As she began to rub him down from head to toe. While groaning in joy, he looked at us both and said, don't wait until you're 85 for this. Bearing witness, we both agreed vehemently. A few days later, in a complete delirium, the nurses and doctors frantic about his blood pressure and unable to complete a sentence, he snapped to, clear-eyed, strength in his voice, and said, spend more time with your family. Freaky. I mean, one of those really scary moments. Normally I would have thought he was just telling me not to work so much, but you know, there was a lot more to it. He knew his time was coming, and that all he had to take with him were the memories. Like the regret my grandfather referred to, I think he wished there were more of them. When I shared this with Chris 30 minutes later, we both cried, knowing he was right, and that we needed to heed his advice. Although my dad recovered enough to get the boot for the long-term facility, we knew it wouldn't be long. The day before he passed, Chris phoned me to say he was going to go over there and take him out in the sunshine. It was supposed to be a beautiful day. He sensed it was over. But, you know, he took him out and he shared that last smile out on the patio with the two of them enjoying the sunshine. It seems fitting for Chris, creating yet another moment to smile. Although Chris didn't give us the same classic departure like I like to feel, he left us with a great gift of love and friendship. And obviously this is just so right on point. I thought maybe something more meaningful, like a lesson should be taught, and maybe, maybe some lemonade we need. At Chris's lowest point 2 years ago on his deathbed, another ambiguous procedure on the horizon to cure him. He invested what little energy he had in showing all of us what courage was. And those who met him saw that happening, making all kinds of morbid jokes to make us feel better about his potential but inevitable departure. With the doctors clueless, he apparently willed himself well. They couldn't explain it, he couldn't explain it, but he did it. Thanks in part to the incredible support of so many of you, and I got to enjoy that paddle. I mean, you guys are fucking awesome. Chris was faced the mystery of life and death, not knowing when it would happen next. Obviously, I can only speak to my own thoughts, and I believe that many of you might agree that we should follow my father's advice and Chris's example and spend more time with family and friends. Let's smile like Chris would. A few days before Chris left, the two of us were treated to just one of the most amazing days. Even at that point, either of us could ever remember. It's if he knew what was coming. He came down to San Diego on an impromptu visit. He said he wanted to visit my mother and, weather permitting, play a round of golf. I booked a time at Torrey Pines, which is like winning a lottery. Although we woke up to a torrential rainstorm, the skies parted like magic 5 minutes before our tee time. And we were left, the two of us and maybe 4 other people, on the busiest golf course in the entire world. The starter asking us if we wanted to join the group in front, and Chris said, no, let's just go, the two of us. He was very introspective in that round, and looking back on it, it was crazy. It was different, more serious on life and less joking. We talked about how lucky we were, just the two of us, on the world's busiest golf course, alone, on the craziest beautiful day ever, with loving, caring, hard-beaten wives at home, healthy and intelligent children, and friends who care. But he knew. We spent the next 5 hours in this altered state of bliss that I'll hold dear for my life and beyond. I mean, we had a hug session and a cry at the end. It's just unbelievable. The pain, suck it up here. The pain and heartache I feel from the loss is heavy. I'm sure you share it. Although we must find our own way to deal with it. For me, I've chosen the best way I know how of what he gave me and to take him with me on what remains of my journey. My grandpa emphasized the importance of minimizing regret to be brave enough to reach higher. My wife's mother taught me courage in the face of pain. My father reminded me to leave with our memories of family and friends. Chris will forever remind me to live for today. That tomorrow's not guaranteed. And then we should let everyone, we know that we love them, that every chance we get to share a smile turning lemons into lemonade. But fuck that. I'd rather have them here.
All right, so Jack Johnson wasn't the only famous singer, the Beach Boys also, but not the Good Vibes Beach Boys, the Huntington Beach Boys.
Wow, I can feel Chris's energy in this room. It's pretty amazing. My name is Zach Moran, and I was fortunate to become a good friend with Chris at UCSB. And over the decades, it would develop into a brotherhood. He was an older brother, a caring friend, a sounding board in tough times, a mentor, an inspiration to me, and an uncle to our kids. Chris was also a great friend to a significant amount of humans. From the golf course to the local restaurant, he loved all the people. The workers, the locals, the back of the house staff, the bartenders, the greenskeepers, the chefs, and the business owners. Chris entered these places with a big smile on his face and was greeted with a bigger smile in return. He was also great at seeing the beauty in people's hearts, including folks who were a little rough around the edges. Chris could feel the goodness in their hearts and love them for who they truly are. He had a snarky and sarcastic sense of humor that would keep us on our toes and cause us to laugh at ourselves. Chris was madly in love with Julie, resulting in him being one of our first of our friends to get married. While visiting Chris in the hospital, he would describe his deep love for Julie to me and how grateful he was for her love and support. He cared immensely for her, and she was his ballast on his journey to success. Chris loved being a father and would inspire the rest of us to start our own families. He loved Malachi and Xenia with every ounce of his soul. Since Chris was just a big kid, he was stoked to have Malachi and Xenia to play Legos, Dungeons and Dragons, video games, and paint figurines with. Chris also loved to watch Xenia play soccer and could be intense on the sidelines, in contrast to his mellow artist style. But since I met Chris, he was always drawing, which was common while we watched Laker games together with friends. He put so much effort and hard work into his vocation as an artist. Chris would transcend our cultural norms and live outside the boundaries that would stifle his artistic energy. I had a front row seat to watch our artistic friend transform into a master plein air painter. From sun pennies, which Chris loved to paint, to sundogs, reflections of eroded cliffs and wet sand, to seasonal changes in color of the mountains. Chris completely immersed himself into the landscape he was painting. The tens of thousands of hours, the getting up in the dark to paint, a sunrise or moonset, battling the elements, poison oaks, swarms of bees, or pesky onlookers. He was relentless in his pursuit to become a master painter and live forever through the art he left behind for us and the imprint he left on our souls. The pursuit to get better and better never left Chris. He once said, "Why do something if you're not going to try to be the best at it?" Challenge himself with 100 paintings in 100 days, or his excitement about figuring out the perfect formula for how to paint wet beach sand reflections. He had a playful childhood spirit and a strong discipline for work. This would combine inside his dimensional mind, forming an intuition for the world around him and he would unleash this intuition onto the canvas. Chris was completely in tune with the natural world on a level of Ansel Adams or John Muir. He could see past the rational world and absorb the natural world and put it on the canvas for us all to enjoy. About a year and a half ago, the local community would unite to support Chris and paddle across the channel from Santa Cruz Island to Santa Barbara Harbor. The morning of the paddle would begin with an insane sunrise over Anacapa Island and a bumpy ride through the potato patch. We would get to our starting point and the conditions turned perfect. Once we were in the middle of the channel, a scary place to be if you were paddling by yourself. This loving community makes you feel comfortable and connected, and the fear of being in the middle of the ocean washes away. Amazing energy. We arrived to the harbor, the beach is packed, and Chris would cap it off with an eloquent thank you speech woven into the story about how he followed his love, left the corporate world behind, dedicated his life to painting, and was continuing to live his dream. Later that week, Chris called me to recap the friendship panel adventure, and he asked me about his speech. I told him I thought it was great, inspirational, and that I loved the message. He then told me about how his speech had touched several people, resulting in them changing their life paths and changing their careers to pursue their dreams. He was so stoked that he was able to be so impactful. Chris loved his community, loved his friends, and most of all, he loved his family. So I'll leave you with this. Live like Chris, and you'll never walk alone.
Hi everyone, I'm Dan. I met Chris at UCSB, and I had the privilege of calling him one of my best friends for nearly 30 years. To say that my public speaking skills are shaky would be putting it nicely, so I'll keep this brief. I'm grateful for the amazing years of friendship I've shared with Chris and Julie, and especially those few years after his diagnosis. When it seemed like we were going to lose him to that severe type of cancer, to still have so many great times with you both was truly special. And to those of you that I've shared some emotional and difficult conversations since we lost him, I want to say how thankful I am for your help with the grief. Some experiences that I've had in my life have collectively eliminated any doubt in my mind of the existence of one spirit. So to you, Chris, as I know you are here with us today, I'm so grateful for our brotherhood and your coolness and your sensitivity. If I was struggling on the golf course or just struggling at life, you're always there for me. One of the most admired people I've ever known. Life won't be as colorful without you. Love you, Potts.
Okay, so on to the, I don't know about that work ethic thing, Zach. I mean, he golfed like 3 days a week, like 6 days a week. Yeah, sorry, Julie. Next up, we've got the elder tribesmen of the Santa Barbara tribe.
I might need to borrow Jay Potter's reading glasses. Hello, my name is David Zell. My friendship with Potter spanned 30 years, starting in the fall of 1993 at UCSB. Being an Elwood native, Potter had a lot of insider information on Isla Vista. And that, coupled with his thirst for life and uninhibited charisma, made him a magnetic social force amongst the doe-eyed freshmen in the uncapped dorms. In the 1990s, social media and cell phones were not around, and it was easy to lose touch with friends. And by our junior year, life took us down different paths. He eventually graduated, moved away. I changed my major, graduated a little later, and stayed in the Santa Barbara area. We had basically lost touch until his return to Santa Barbara with his wife Julie in 2003, and from there on, there was no looking back. Not to discount the numerous poker nights, family campouts, island trips, barbecues, and rounds of golf. My most cherished memories with Potter are from our annual Memorial Day backpacking trips, a 19-year tradition that started in May of 2005 and was coined the Death March due to ambitious itineraries, heavy backpacks overloaded with top-shelf liquids and prime cuts of meat. Potter made his first of countless local backcountry plein air paintings on that trip. The framework for these trips, which Potter was instrumental in developing, was that 1, the routes had to be in our local backyard within the southern Los Padres National Forest. 2, the dinners had to be a group effort and equally gourmet and gluttonous. And 3, we tried to incorporate Chumash rock art sites into our itineraries when possible. We also extended the invitation to close friends, old and new, and in the last 19 years, an invaluable crew of 26 people comprised of chefs, artists, writers, scientists, musicians, entrepreneurs, and much more have participated in one or more of these trips. Collectively, these parameters and participants fostered a wilderness experience that added a whole new dimension to the appreciation of place and camaraderie. In 2002, the Death March was renamed the Life March in response to Potter's cancer diagnosis. And in the years prior, Potter had always been one of the strongest hikers in the group. where I would be struggling to breathe on steep ascents, Potter would be effortlessly chatting away, causing me to struggle between gasps of breath and laughter. It's really hard to laugh when you can't breathe. But his cancer treatment really slowed him down, and he became the one that had a hard time breathing. And but he continued to laugh. He also continued to paint. Often with sand and gnats embedded in the brushstrokes, his backcountry paintings were some of my favorites, as I got to experience his talent firsthand in extremely remote settings where nature is its true self and where we were our true selves. Potter's passing, a few months shy of our 20th anniversary, really compounds the loss that we're feeling. And we've decided to proceed with this year's trip in a continuation of the celebration of Potter's life. But what happens in the years following is uncertain. What is certain is that the life or death march will never be the same. Potter was the life of the death march, and his death now marks the end of the life march. Rest in peace, love, light, and laughter. Christopher Joseph Stewart Potter.
I'm Kevin Kaufman. Chris's and Julie's family and mine are so intertwined. We were there for your kids. Julie was our doula for our kids being born. Our wives are business partners, Sarah and Julie. Our kids are like cousins, and we were like brothers. I wrote a letter to Chris when he passed. I'm going to try to read some of it here, some excerpts. Wish me luck. To my brother and best friend, Chris, our friendship solidified climbing Heartbreak Hill up to Medulce 20 years ago. I'll think of that beautiful cinnamon bear running across the meadow for the rest of my life. We were so blessed to witness it together, and we spoke of it often, along with our favorite word, Medulce. No one's mentioned it so far, but Chris was so extremely lactose intolerant. You did not want to be hiking behind him. Any dairy, he would stink up the whole forest. And like Dave mentioned, he was just a chatterbox, and he wanted to be near him because, he was talking. Dustin's a chatterbox, he talks a lot too. You want to be near these guys because it makes the hike go a little bit easier. For such an artist mind, you really had a scientific, inquisitive way about you two. You two were a hydrologist, and your love of water was deep in our conversations, our play, relaxation, and your art. You would say, "Water is my God. It's all about the reflections." You always knew what stage the moon was in, and your knowledge of the seasons, stars, and sun angle bear witness to your daily observations out there in the field. You swore you could have figured out the cosmos the same as the ancient ones before us. Every time I see the weather forecast now, I'll think of you. This guy was constantly looking at the weather. You taught me parenting long before I had kids. Gwen and Owen, we're so blessed to have you as another father figure. Gwen loves how cool you are, always giving her high fives and praise. Owen loved all the fun things you showed him, from Campus Point toilet bowl to the secrets of golf. Just know that I love Malachi and Xenia like my own, and we'll always be there for them. You're so lucky to have had Julie, such a strong woman. Our tribe will support you forever. Our family dinners, your Swedish chef salad method, where you just chop, wine everywhere. The secrets to your vinaigrette, our games of gin rummy, we'll keep up. with our Potter Kaufman family traditions as best we can, but we'll miss you so much. Our Premier League weekend mornings, our countless beach days, I mean, I just don't know how to do these things without you, but we'll all try. Thank you.
I'm Matt Kevin. I first met Potter about 20 years ago or so through our weekly poker night, which we used to have, and we actually kept that going for, I don't know, almost 15 years every week. He became a central fixture of our entire group. He was married before any of us, he had kids before most of us, and he did his day job to pursue his dreams before any of us, and we're all still working on that part. We came to be known as a tribe, which Julie came up with. I wasn't really a fan of the name to begin with, but it stuck, and now it's going to stick forever. So I guess I'm a convert on that front. But when I was thinking of, I wrote some stories. I'm a journalist. I wrote some stories about Chris, and I was trying to think of like what brought our group together as a tribe, as friends, and it feels like it's this deep love for the true soul of Santa Barbara. Maybe some other places too, but it feels like this love for Santa Barbara, which is like nature, adventure, food and drink. We like that stuff a lot. But even more is that sense of community you can really feel in this town, that if you tap into it, you can feel it. And Potter epitomized that way more than anybody. He was a symbol of that, he was that. But Chris is everywhere. I can't turn my head in my house without seeing a Chris Potter painting. I have like 50. But he's also in the ocean, and he's in the sky, and he's in the trees, and he's in the mountains, and he's in the creeks. He's everywhere. And for that, we give thanks and love.
Matt just asked if we're gonna get a drink after this. Hell yeah. Okay, we have a quick surprise guest. Kevin Gleason's gonna come up. In trying to help put this together with Julie, we're trying to figure out, who should be up here and speak, and nobody spent more time painting with Chris than Kevin. And so we had to have him come and say a few words about Chris and the painting, more specifically, like how amazing he was at it. So, fellow artist and GP teacher, Kevin Gleason.
Hey everybody. Like so many of you, Chris is definitely a very close friend, and I'm going to miss him so much. He and I, our friendship did orbit around painting. Most of the time we were hanging out. That was part of it, whether we were backpacking with these guys, painting some really amazing locations, or just painting places around town. And I thought I'd share a couple stories about kind of, Chris really was chasing his dream. He was doing what he loved the most, and just share with you a couple of things I learned being out and painting with him. So we would go, let's just pretend, like I'm just blending memories, but picture us painting out at Elwood. I get off school teaching art at DP, and we meet out there and set up our easels and open up one of the most important, Chris taught me, painting materials, which is beer. So we'd each bring 2 cold beers, one for the other, one for ourselves, so we get 2 flavors. And we'd stand and, just recognize, we'd stand before this beautiful place that all of us live and look out and think about how lucky we were. And we'd talk about all kinds of things. We'd talk about art. Chris got me reading some of these old school historical painting books. His favorite was this guy, John Carlson. And there's this line in that book, Chris loved the old language, and the guy said, only a buffoon would do something or other. I don't remember what the buffoon did, but Chris would make me laugh all the time because we'd be painting and all of a sudden he'd just say something like, only a buffoon would, you know, use phthalo green right out of the tube or something like that. You know, just like, we talk about, you know, he'd, you know, if we were out at Elwood, he'd tell me stories about with Jones and Brandon and some of his other friends, you know, just growing up, like 10-year-old Chris, you know, just some of the funny adventures they had out there. We talk about our kids. I was really fortunate to get to know Xenia a little bit when Chris and I coached the Minions. I think the girls were like 9 or 10 then, and I'll leave it to your imagination. You can imagine Potter coaching a team of 9-year-old girls, teaching them soccer. It was a great time, lots of laughter, and he loved Xenia. You know, loved you so much. So proud of you. And Malachi, I've been fortunate to know as a student in my art classes here at DP. And actually my last conversation with Chris was just, you know, 4 or 5 days before he passed, and he was telling me, just, you know, he's saying, Malachi's so proud of you. He's like, Malachi's a real artist. He's like, I can't believe it. He's, you know, he's just making stuff and it's incredible, and he's being drawn into his work, you know, the same way I am, and he's so proud to see that. So he loved you guys so much. When we were out there, part of, so if we're painting Elwood, there's the mid painting swim is always part of the painting process. So we leave our easels up on the cliffs and go down to the beach, and we joke about how, you know, maybe someone will finish them for us. We jump in the water, and I remember every single time we did it, Chris would always say, and it's true, you gotta try it, jumping in cold water changes the way you see colors. And he'd be like, see, Kevin, the colors look different now, look, wait. You know, it's like, you know, cold water makes you see colors differently. One of my favorite lines of Chris's was, you know, as you're painting, a painting's not like going out and taking a photo. You're standing there for a couple hours, 2 or 3 hours, and things are changing, and the light moves, or like a little bit of fog, like this little wisp of ghost of fog, like blows by or something, and Chris would just he'd just be like, yoo-hoo! Like he'd just yell, and his line was always to say, good job, Mother Nature. he was always giving Mother Nature compliments. Things like this happen all the time, but just a typical thing that would happen to us when we were out there, and we'd see like a couple in their lab like throwing sticks for their dog in the water, you know, going on a walk in the afternoon, and finally they weave up, you know, and come up to the cliffs and see us out there painting. And Chris, like everybody said, I mean, he can just talk to anybody instantly. Like, you know, like I was just always so impressed with that. And so, you know, you know, one of the couple, you know, would probably make the joke that everybody makes when they see a painter. You know, they're like, did you put me in, or did you get my good side? And Chris would joke along, and they'd come around and they'd see the painting that he was working on, and, you know, is that for sale? You know, they would want to buy it. And Chris said, yeah, and he said, but wait, first, I am going to put you guys in. And you could see they'd get scared, like they'd get nervous, like he was going to mess it up, like, no, you know, we like it how it is. But he'd go in there and just like way off towards the horizon where we first saw them coming down the beach, be like a little tiny lowercase letter I, you know, just a line with the head. And then another one, and then he'd mix a little yellow and a little dash, and that's the lab. And they'd look at that painting and like, whoa, we're in the painting now, you know, like, and Chris and I used to talk about like what we realized is, as artists, like you know, like the painters only do like a fraction of the work. Most of the work is the people looking at the painting complete it for you, you know, so those people would look at it and you know, that's what they'd see. So, you know, a big thing that you know, Chris and I learned over the years teaching, painting, is, you know, an artist has a really, really fortunate job because your job is basically looking for beauty. That's your job as an artist. You're just always looking for beauty. And you find what you look for. You know, you always see what you look for. And Chris, you know, he saw beauty everywhere. not just in the landscape, but clearly in everybody here. He saw friends in everybody, and he saw love in everybody. And if there's anything to learn from Potter, it's you see what you look for and look for what you want to see. And what Kevin was saying, a month from now when you're out there and you're walking out on Owen and you look out, you're like, that looks like a Chris Potter painting. Yeah. That's Chris alive in you, looking out for your eyes.
So the mid-painting dip in the ocean wasn't the only time he would do that. He discovered that it was fun to do that at Sandpiper Golf Course too. But he didn't always bring his swim trunks. And yesterday we were sitting around after golf, I asked everybody to say their favorite thing about Potter. And the golf cart girl, who was always kind of out there, someone asked her, what's your favorite memory of Potter? And she said, well, it's my favorite and my worst was when I saw him naked.
I wore this today because I know Chris Potter would make fun of me for wearing this suit. He would crush me for this, but I'm Damian Villegas. Chris Potter and I have been friends for about 40 years, since we're about 9 years old or so. We grew up in the same neighborhood, and our back fences shared a small park that a bunch of us played in. Some of you are here, Tony Kroc, my brother Stefan. I'm not sure if I saw the Rakovich twins here or not, but they were part of the crew too. And of course, Brandon and Choners. I call them Chris Jones Choners. Potter Spotsky. Potter and I and our little crew are inseparable. Growing up, playing hours and hours of soccer and football and basketball and endless days. I mean, endless days at our beach bodyboarding. I look back at those days with a lot of fondness and warmth. Potter had a great sense of humor and a particularly great laugh. He laughed with a full belly, and it often came with tears, and that was the best. I made a conscious effort throughout our lives to get him to that point. I wanted to make him cry with laughter as much as I could. Potter was seemingly many contradictory things all at once. He was laid back but sneakily ambitious, which I think a lot of you guys probably have recognized about him. He was outgoing but also could be introspective at times. He was a kind soul but could have cutting jokes that sometimes hit you like an hour later. Like, wow, that one kind of hurt. He'd show up to a nice dinner in dirty clothes and then pull out a wad of $100 bills and pay for everything. As we all know, he was an amazing artist, but what a lot of people don't know about Potter is he was a really, really good athlete. Like a really good athlete growing up, and then became an almost scratch golfer later in life. As some of you recall, I lived with Potter on a couple of different occasions. My family had moved away from Goleta to Sacramento before my 10th grade. Potter came up with me and lived with us before I started my new school as the new kid. Going to a new school where nobody knew me was rough, to say the least. Potter and I spoke regularly while I was in NorCal. Before my senior year, he and I persuaded his dad and my parents for me to live with them in Goleta and graduate from DP High School, which was really special. We shared a room, and his dad, Jay, bought us bunk beds. Which Kevin stole my joke. I was going to say wasn't easy given the fact that Potter was unknowingly lactose intolerant at the time. Wow. Not easy to share a room with that guy sometimes, especially when you didn't know it. His dad, Jay, passed away a few months ago. He was a kind-hearted man that had no business taking on a wayward 17-year-old punk kid like me for an entire year. Throughout the years, I would thank Jay every time I saw him. He would brush me off like it wasn't a big deal, but it was a huge deal to me, and it changed the trajectory of my life. Potter knew this, but he was kind enough not to remind me about it often. Potter was a grade younger than me, but was someone I always looked up to. He was always just ahead of me with good music I had been into from like Public Enemy in junior high school to Led Zeppelin in high school. We'd spend hours listening to Zeppelin in our room talking about girls and sports and high school politics and whatnot. His wife Julie asked that I put together some music for today, and I took this request very seriously. Going back and forth over the playlist for a full week, I could have filled 24 hours of music that would have reminded me of him and our time together over the years. In the end, I wanted to include songs and music that I know would honor him and hopefully resonate with a lot of you here. In college and afterward, as young people often do, we started to branch out with different circles of friends, but always keeping in contact and hanging out periodically when I would come into town. As the story goes, as we all know, he left the financial services industry in the late 2000s and started painting full-time, turning out amazing pieces of art over and over again. I'd visit Santa Barbara and see his artwork everywhere, in a hospital, in restaurants, hotels, coffee shops, they were everywhere. When we go grab beers, he was like a local celebrity. It was like amazing to see. I was so proud of him and what he was able to accomplish, but even more his willingness and mental fortitude he had to make these life changes. Believe it or not, Potter was actually a little uptight as a kid. I know that comes as a shock to some of you, but that was the case. But he made a concerted effort to change his outlook on life at some point, and that was just one more thing that I really admired about him. When Rachel and I were fortunate enough to move back to Cleveland in 2015, Potter and I would hang out occasionally for drinks or some type of event that he was hosting or attending. He introduced me to a bunch of really good guys that I've got to know over the years, Matt and Kevin and Dave Zell that spoke earlier. Unfortunately, it took his cancer diagnosis a few years ago as the impetus for Potter and me to really connect on a frequent basis again. When he told me about his diagnosis, I was adamant that I did not see the cancer taking him down, even after he told me the odds. I just couldn't see a world without Potter, frankly. I promised him that it wasn't going to take him out, and I even put the Viegas guarantee on it. When he got his clean image a couple of months ago, I really thought he had beaten the odds and had lived up to my guarantee. I think we all did, which makes this a lot harder. I'm blessed to have called Potter a friend and a brother in life. He was someone who enjoyed good drinks, often tequila with me, with good music, a lot of laughter, and always great friends, many of whom are here today. I'm glad I had the last handful of years to reconnect with them, often telling each other we loved one another and how much we appreciated each other in our lives. That was really special and important to me. I just want to say one more time that I love you, man, and I'm happy that I was able to tell you that before you left. So please drink and toast to Potter today. He would have loved this party. He'd be bouncing around from friend to friend the entire time, so I hope you guys all enjoy the festivities later. And I'm looking forward to celebrating his life with all of you. Rest in peace, Potsy.
Wow, that was really tough. I'll start basics. My name's Brandon Penn. Chris and I are friends for 40 years. Every time I thought about something to say, I couldn't even get it out. Devastating. But here we are. Easiest thing maybe is just to tell a quick story. I mean, it echoes of what everybody experienced with Chris. The last time we hung out one-on-one, maybe a month ago, he gave me a call, and he'd been having some problems breathing, some shortness of breath. I'm a physician, so he would frequently call me, having questions, and I loved being there for him and walking him through it and helping him anytime I could. And so he wanted to meet and talk. It was like 10 in the morning out by my house by the bluffs, and he wanted some beer, so I brought some. What do you do? Your friend wants beer at 10 in the morning? You bring some beer and some breakfast burritos, and you have a talk, and we're talking, working through it, and I was happy to be there and support him. And the whole time he's painting, of course, he's always painting and talking, as everybody's talked about. And at one point, the conversation shifted from his concerns, because he felt better about them, to what he was painting. And I came around and looked, and he was talking about, again, everybody's talked about this, he just had such a great perception of light and the environment and how to capture it, and the depth of his knowledge was amazing. And the examples of, like, you know, the time of day and the shadows on the cliffs. And he said, right now the water looks blue, but in 2 hours it's going to look green. And I just had this flash of when we were kids, when we were about 12 years old. We were D&D nerds, and at some point we decided that lead figures, these little avatars, we needed them to play our game, to step it up to another level. And he stayed up all night painting them, bringing them to life. And I remember I left late at night, came in the morning, he hadn't slept. And he made these wizards and these warriors just pop. And he went into depth about the color, the flesh tones, the whites, the pinks, and it was amazing. And that was the first spark I saw of his artistic side, really. And it was just such an honor to know him and to be his friend for so many years and watch that evolution from painting these lead figures to a master plein air artist, and that his love for the world and life and how he incorporated that in his paintings. I'm just so proud of him, love him so much, just watching him become an amazing husband and the most amazing loving father. What more can I say? I'm just so proud of him and honored to know him. Thank you, Chris. I love you, man.
So, Chris was our brother. He was your brother. He was our brother, our father, husband, and friend. And there's a big, deep hole that can never be filled with his passing. But I wanted to bring it back to what I consider to probably be the best speech I've ever heard, bar none, at the end of the friendship paddle for Chris Potter. And he got a lot of people to change their lives from his wisdom and his words. And the thing that I'll never forget is he's got this terminal cancer. And he said, "Don't feel sorry for me. I've done it. I've done everything that I need to do in life. Don't feel sorry for me." And those words will always stick with me as I go through life. And I think that far beyond his art, I think that's the gift that he gave to all of us, was just to remember to do the things that you need to do to be happy, and that you can make those changes. Don't wait, because you don't know what tomorrow holds. Don't feel sorry for Chris. Thank you. So, one last little piece of administrivia that I forgot to say is a couple of things as we're gonna finish with a song that was kind of rewritten by the tribe. It was kind of fun to be on that text thread. Everybody was kind of figuring out the correct words for the song. Recorded by our good friend John Payne, who had left for New Zealand and still hadn't finished the recording. I was just like, how is this guy gonna record this? Turns out he's in a $7 million villa with a private recording studio. So we'll have the song by John Payne and kind of the tribe, and then we'll finish with Chris's his power song as he was going through his cancer journey. And the words for John Payne's song are on the are on the program, so if you're sitting with someone, feel free. But if you know the words to the Pink Floyd song, feel free to sing along. It's powerful. And then as we depart, again, do the best you can in carpool. The parking's going to be tight. As you enter the gas station, you'll go past the pumps, and there'll be kind of a dip, like a wash. That's where the property for the restaurant begins, so please don't park in the gas station side of that dip. They'll be parking around the back in the field. It should be dry by now, so I think we're good there. And then it should. Finally, please don't take alcohol outside of Timbers. Okay, so here we go. We're going to finish off with a couple of songs and a slideshow. Grab your Kleenex. This is going to be a good one. And let's celebrate.
Just wait a while for the right day. And as I rise above the tree line and the clouds, I look down, hear the sound of the things you said today.
pretty killer. I didn't watch those on purpose. I've had access to them for a while, but I just wanted to be in the moment. So I want to, from deep inside, say sorry to all the people who would have loved to have been up here and speak. He meant so much to so many of us. And I'd like to thank Santa Barbara School District for letting us have the facility. This is, I mean, where else were we going to be with this many people? Thank you. I'd like to say thank you to everybody that made this happen. We've got people volunteering to live stream, open up the place for us. People are putting together tables. You'll see some amazing table decorations at Timbers. At the end of the evening, please take one. It's meant to be shared with everybody. The number, I couldn't even name off all the people that made this happen. So let's give all of ourselves a round of applause and let's party.
Where's your truck?